everyone. My name is Mickey. I'm your host of Beyond Page One podcast, where we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, leadership, and kind of try to uncover what it is behind the cover of the book, so to speak. Today's guest is Clare. She's a marketing and corporate social investment professional with expertise in brand awareness, reputation management, and partnership development. She's currently the managing director at Robertson LLP, where she develops and executes annual and long-term business strategies. And she manages the resources and strategic partnerships there as well. Some of Clare's other interests include various projects, including anniversary celebrations, flood relief efforts, a milestone program for companies such as AltaGas, Husky Energy, and Transatlantic Corporation. Her involvement showcases her commitment to the corporate social responsibility and the community engagement. I'm super excited to have you here, Clare. Welcome, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fantastic.
I'm just going to hop right into it. What are some strategies that you employ to ensure effective resource management within the organization, especially during periods of growth or change?
That is a very good question. That's a big question. Thank you for getting that out of the way at the very beginning here.
They're only getting harder after this.
No. End of the day, it comes down to communication and your planning, right? So yes, growth is big and growth is fast, typically. But when you do have an opportunity to plan for growth, if you can actually sit down with your team and work backwards, being here's where we want to be, exactly, here's what we need resource-wise, this is what this looks like, and then start adding those people to your team or adding those, the IT side to that, whatever it might be, add them as you can, when you can, so that when you actually hit that growth mark, you've got everything lined up. That's ideal. That's very rare. Sometimes it's just like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? We need to work backwards and figure out what we've got going on, but it's just communicating with the teams and figuring out what they actually need to do the job to the best of their ability and what you need to scale. So if you're, say, growing on our side here, we've grown our real estate department exponentially in the last couple of years. And our biggest struggle resource-wise was human beings. So what we've started doing every year in the fall, when potentially we don't need all of the human beings on the real estate side, we've still gone out and sourced additional human beings to do the work. So we may not have the work right now, but we've got them in place. So when the work comes, we can hit the ground running. Again, it comes down to communications as far as I'm concerned with most things, but with resource management and growth for sure.
Very cool. Okay, awesome. As someone who seems to be very deeply involved in increasing community brand awareness, what advice would you give to businesses looking to strengthen their ties with their local communities and organizations?
When you're talking about any type of community alignment, it has to align with your business. I mean, there's so many companies where you go to an event and you're like, why is there a logo here? Why are there people here? Like, what is that story? Where is the tie-in? And I think it can go really well or it can go really poorly. So if you're there as an individual at, say, a fundraising event or at the unveiling of some building or whatever it might be, and you cannot understand why that company's there and why their brand is there, that's the issue. It's either you can't see it being aligned, it hasn't been communicated properly, or they don't really know, quite frankly. The biggest thing I would say any organization can do is really sit down with their leadership team, whoever owns the company, whatever that looks like, and figure out what makes sense, what actually aligns. And then also, you can say that where, sometimes organizations and sponsorships or donations, whatever it might be, align with the leadership, but it might not align with the employees. And that's another big gap, right? So it's that having those conversations with employees as well, like what's close to your heart, what makes sense, what do you see? You're the ones in our operating areas. What does this look like for you? And really, if you're going to build a program out like that, it has to be everyone involved. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And I think you can have, well, not I think, I know you can do a lot more damage by pushing something out, a community partnership out externally, and the general public or your clients or your stakeholders or whomever your audience is for that particular partnership. And if they don't get why, like you've missed the mark.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see things, you see a logo somewhere or you see a company participating in an event and you're like, that makes so much sense. This makes sense to me. That's where you want to be. And unfortunately, these days you see a lot of, I don't get it. And then someone tells you the story and then you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense. But it's got to be aligned. Otherwise, don't do it. Spend the money somewhere else. Spend it on actually brand marketing.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Sourcing strategic partnerships is key for driving growth and revenue, as we both know. What criterias do you use to evaluate those potential partnerships, and how do you ensure that it's mutually beneficial?
It really depends on the organization. If you're looking at a large company, they've got their strategic plans out for 3 to 5 years. They've got their pillars of giving. They've got their partnership criteria. If you're looking at a smaller midsize, they don't necessarily have those programs in place and those foundations there to
Mhm.
make simple strategic choices. So I would say, so we're the firm I work for right now. We are a boutique firm, all coming up to the mid-size space, and we don't have that framework right now. What we do is very much, what are the business needs for us in the next 12 months, 24 months, say 5 years on the growth side? Who do we need to bring with us? Like, what does that look like? Who do our partners need to be? What areas of the business are we trying to grow? And same thing, if you're even on the large corporate side, it's always a business facing decision on who you go after for partnerships. What makes sense in these different areas? Are you trying to grow a certain area? Are you trying to shrink a certain area? That will drive who you're looking for as partners. And realistically, they'll align with everything else that's going on with your marketing and communications, because it's all tied up so closely.
Yeah, it all works together. Yeah.
Yeah, like they can't be siloed, and because if they are, it just doesn't work. It's a lot of
Yeah.
wasted money.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so you're deeply involved in the corporate social investment part of the world. What trends do you foresee shaping the future of the industry and those initiatives?
I think the biggest thing that I've actually seen over the last 10 years has been the employee involvement and the employee buy-in. So I've been in this sector for 20 years now, which sounds terrifying. So maybe delete the 20-year part of that.
Bleep 5 years.
Yeah, it was 5 years. The When I started, it was really, so you even see it the way that things are branded now in this area. It used to be called community investment, and it was corporate giving, and it was corporate social responsibility, and then it was social impact, and then it just it keeps on evolving to better reflect how corporations have to pitch it to shareholders, but also how they pitch it to their employees. Right. First big shift I saw was really engaging the employees, like truly getting them on board, because those are your biggest champions for whatever it is that you're doing. That grassroots, let's get it done. We can brand them, we can brand the project, whatever it might be. Recently, I would say, again, the last 10 years or so it's very much tied back to business goals. So before, you'd have a bucket of money and you'd go spend it on everything that seemed nice and friendly and fluffy and like had a good message to it. And now there's a combination of really meeting strategic business needs. So an example would be an energy company I was with, had a large budget. A bunch was committed to research and development because there's provincial regulations that we had to meet. There was a bunch of employee giving, which was fantastic, but we also had other buckets where it was like, okay, sitting in budget meetings and everyone's like, why do you have all this money to spend? Like, give it back. So trying to make the business case, going like, oh, what I can do over here really does meet the needs on your side. So taking the initiative and meeting with, heavy oil folks and meeting with HR and being like, okay, like, what do you think the biggest gaps for you guys are in the next 5-10 years? What type of investments can we make on this side to meet those needs? Because it's not just, the fluffy put a t-shirt with a logo on it. It's how do we legitimately meet the business needs? And so that has become such a larger piece of this type of work, especially on the corporate side, where it's not only the warm and fuzzies, it's actually meeting business needs. And it's a great story to tell internally, because people will stop getting mad that you're spending all this money on things when they feel like it should be going to their bonuses. People have always had a bit of an issue with, why organizations spend money in these areas, whether it's social investment, community investment, whatever you want to call it. Being able to tie back that true business focus, and you can measure it, is a really big thing. That's definitely the biggest shift that I've seen in the last 20 years is warm and fuzzy to like hard corporate. Here's why.
Yeah. How do you measure the tangible impact of the social investment programs on both the company and the community?
It really depends on what's going out the door. Ideally, an organization will spend money developing their programs in a way that they can be measured. And it really depends if it's, 100% philanthropic. That's just brand awareness. That's just being a good corporate citizen. That's just being a neighbor. And the way that's measured is how your license to operate goes. Do you have the buy-in from the local communities where you're operating? If you're looking at, larger investments, there are metrics there. Whereas in like, what were the impressions? So you work with marketing very closely on that. Like, what were the metrics for this event? Who was there? Why were they there? What can we tie back directly to sales and XY type of area? There's no one size fits all formula for any of it. And that's the most interesting part. And that's why people who have been doing this for so long and have developed this into like true profession. Before, it was always kind of off of the side of someone's desk in corporate communications or marketing. But it's become an actual career field for folks. And that's where the true measurement KPIs metrics are coming from these folks who have all of that experience and the corporate support, especially from like corporate comms and marketing.
So when talking about, you mentioned this earlier, and I want to dive into a little bit more, the fostering of, the employee engagements. What strategies have you found really effective for fostering those and, creating participation in corporate social responsibility activities? How do you get people in it?
It is really hard. Because you've got, it depends on the size of the organization as well, right? If you're looking at, I came up in very large organizations, 5,000 plus employees, across North America, Asia Pac, whatever. It's all about how does it tie back to them? So if you've got individuals, you've got sites and you've got individuals all over the country or North America, how does it tie back to them? And being able to build your program out in a way that those sites and those individuals, those employees can give back in a way that is meaningful to them and their community. So there's always, if you look at kind of the structure of this in a lot of organizations, you've got corporate. So corporate does a lot of stuff on the marketing side. They're very closely tied. It's the big corporate investments. It usually is nationwide. It meets a larger goal when you're looking at, the strategic planning for the organization. But you need to allocate funds specifically for different sites, right? People who live in, say, Taber, Alberta, have a different attachment to organizations than folks who are in St. John's, Newfoundland. Yeah. You can't have a blanket approach to all of it. So number one is understanding who these people are, engaging them at the site level and getting them to help. Being like, hey, we need help sourcing partnerships. Like what does your community need? In general, like how do we keep on earning our license to operate here? And then, empowering them to find those partnerships. Obviously, they have to go through all of the hoops and all the other things we have going on to improve stuff. But having them bring forward things that they genuinely want to get involved in or want to support is number one. We used to see, and we still see some places, but we used to see a lot of, large corporate donations going out, sponsorships, whatever it might be. And the worst thing was when employees would sit there and you could hear them literally asking, we have no money this year. Our bonuses were cut. We had like really unfortunate raises this year. Why are we giving money to this? It doesn't make sense to me. So if you can engage them at their level, it really helps. Well, A, have the ownership because they were the one that put it forward and they can't just blame big corporate for it. But two, tells that story and takes away that it builds a bridge between corporate and site. Is I guess the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
Just engaging folks at their level where you can, because we always have to earn our license to operate no matter what we do. Whether you're a law firm, whether you're in oil and gas, whether you're agriculture, you have to earn that wherever you are, even in a big city. So if you can earn that within the community and with the people that live there, that's number one.
Yeah, I like that. What advice would you give to companies that are looking to establish and enhance their programs, but especially those operating in industries that have traditionally lower levels of community? Because there are those industries.
Well, it's interesting. So I'm Alberta based, and I've spent my career in utility, the energy sector, and ag, so agribusiness, and they're all over it. There's never been an issue with trying to explain why we need to do this. I think I've had a bit of a challenge on the legal side. So it's less of we need a program, we need to earn license to operate, and it's more of a how do we enhance our brand awareness and our marketing activities with philanthropic or, corporate citizenship type work, whether that's, going out to our partners that support us. We do a lot of referral work. So that business development, that like B2B is huge for us. Mm-hmm. And it's finding out what those organizations and our partners want to support what that looks like in their area, and then figure out how can we support that. So versus right now where I'm at, instead of building our own program, it's how do we support the programs of the folks who are supporting us already.
Okay.
It's been a very interesting change of direction for me, career wise, and really understanding that difference.
Cool. So it sounds like you take on multiple projects simultaneously.
Well, of course. Who doesn't?
So how do you approach the challenge of that, and particularly when they involve diverse stakeholders and diverse objectives?
Priority, 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 priority. So I have a massive whiteboard. I can't like this whiteboard behind me actually goes the length of my office.
Oh wow. Okay.
uh, it's really building out your priorities and going, okay, so say I've got 7 major projects on right now. I've got 25 different stakeholders. What I really enjoy doing is finding the stakeholders who can work together and support each other, and then bucket those out separately. So it doesn't have to be all of these different things at once. They can be bucketed and aligned with each other. That's just the only way to do it. There's only so many hours in a day, and we all know that teams are lean these days, and it's that always doing more with less.
Yeah. I feel like that's the approach in the world right now.
Yeah. The magic of doing so much more with so much less is quite fascinating.
We're just juggling balls all the time.
Yeah.
What role do you see technology playing in shaping the future growth and success of Robertson LLP? And how are you going to leverage the technology advancements in your strategic planning?
For us on the legal side, it's quite the Chat GPT AI writing has been quite a fascinating thing that's come up for us. Very, very much so. I don't have a lot of experience in it, to be honest. I'm still old school. I like to write everything myself and have other people review it. We've got folks on our team who are testing out different applications on that, whether it comes to reviewing contracts. I am always asking for articles and content on different areas that are timely that we can push out through our social channels, and they're testing them out. And it's been really interesting watching them test out some topics, and then I get what I need so much more quickly. Yeah, I really don't have a good answer to that question because it's not my world, but on the legal side, very much the AI generated content.
Fair. And what about like strategic, like internal marketing to grow your business? What kind of avenues are you exploring? Or have you done that have failed, or have you done that work really well?
My personal, I have a very, very, very tiny team over here, and my personal favorites on the technology side are software that I can schedule things with. So I can sit there on the evenings and weekends and hammer out a whole bunch of content, get everything done, and then schedule it out for, I try to do 3 or 4 months at a time being pushed out. Same thing with if we're trying to communicate with our partners, communicate with our, previous clients, whatever it might be. Again, like, MailChimp and whatever else it is that you can schedule and send. I found such a huge difference in the last few years with how well these programs work, where you can just batch everything out, and not batch everything out in a way that it's not thoughtful, but do it all at once, schedule it, forget it, move on to the next.
Yeah. Do you do any sort of advertising for yourself?
We do. So obviously Google, work on all of our SEO, print ads, digital, so big box ads, leaderboard ads, whatnot. Working on some different geotag ads to be pushed out. Very much depending on different events that we would sponsor, that we would attend, you can push out your geotagged ad afterwards, depending on like who your audience is. And that's been a really interesting shift. In a previous role, we did a lot with some sports teams in town, and it was when this stuff started coming out years ago. I remember sitting with one of the large media companies in the country, and they're telling you all the things you can do. And I sat there as a human, and I was so creeped out by it. I was like, this is horrifying. I don't want to leave my house. But then as a marketer, I was like, tell me more. My goodness, what else can we do? Like, how can we drill this down? Like, this is amazing. So it's what we have the capacity to do right now is incredible. And it just depends on, it's not for everyone, but you have to have a very specific goal in mind and a very specific target audience for that type of stuff. But it's very, very cool.
That is very cool. Are
I,
you doing most of that internally with your own team, or do you?
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Good for you.
internally, and then partnerships with like, the big media companies who will give you a package, and then you just kind
Yeah.
of, here's what I want to do. Here's what this looks like. Here's my monthly, whatever, my budget. And
Yeah.
they give
I
you
have
that.
something off the call that we should talk about programmatic ads. I think you'll enjoy it. We'll talk about it later.
Awesome.
But I had one more question here. Yeah. As someone who navigates various industry roles, what strategies have you found most effective in building the strong professional and fostering those meaningful connections?
Consistency. Like
Consistency.
literally just doing it. I know that everyone hates the word networking, but I want to go to that event. Oh, I'm so tired. I'm burnt out. I spend all day talking to people. You just have to be consistent. You have to make an effort to find out, figure out who you want to meet and who you want to reconnect with, or who you want to, continue connecting with. And make sure you're at those events. Make sure that you're sending a coffee note out. Make sure that you're having that happy hour. It's the consistency is key. I'm in Calgary here, and Calgary is just a big, small city, right? We're, I don't know how many, like 1.5 or 6 million. The Calgary core is everyone knows everyone. And if you're not there, you'll be forgotten about. So you need to make that effort. And whether it's, if you're not someone who's in a very social type of role, use LinkedIn, and use your friends and be like, hey, you work in this industry. I'm looking to meet a couple people. Can I take them out? It's
I think people are scared to just
yeah.
take that first step or even scared.
Oh, totally. And it's the funny thing is if you ask someone, I would say 99% of the time, they're happy to. They're flattered. They're like, oh my goodness, you want to learn
They're
about
happy
what
to
I
help.
do
Yeah.
and my experience? Yeah. And that's my rule. Anyone who reaches out, like, I'll give you 20 minutes. Like, let's have a cup of coffee. Like,
Yeah.
let's have a conversation. It's the one thing I've learned is generationally, folks who are kind of, I would say, in that, late 20s, early 30s area, they've learn networking differently, and they're much more reserved and don't want to. So it's very much a lead by example, going, hey, I'm going to go do this. Would you like to come? I think it's valuable for you because of X, Y, and Z. And then they get more comfortable. They're okay to do it on their own.
Yeah. The generational thing is interesting. So I'm in my late 20s, but I love social events and I love networking, and I've found it very difficult when building out sales teams and account management teams
Yeah.
to find people that want to talk to people.
Yeah.
It's we're and I get it with COVID, especially everyone hid behind their computers. You and I are hiding behind our computers right now having a
Yeah.
podcast interview, right? It's not in person, and it takes out the human approach on it.
Well, it really does. And as someone who, so I'm in my early 40s, so video calls and all the things and stuff that we joked about growing up. Like, oh, eventually that'll be that'll be the thing.
Yeah.
I've always found, especially during COVID, I found it very hard because I worked on the community engagement side very closely, up through COVID before I made the switch over here. I have a really hard time connecting over video. I have a really hard time personally, having conversations. I have friends and family who live all over the world, and they're like, hey, let's have a video call. I'm like, you know what? Can we just pick up the phone? I don't feel the same connection via video. And I think some people do. And I think that's incredible. And some of us just really struggle with that.
Yeah. It was funny. During COVID, I had a sales coach, and he was giving me tips on how to close and how to just talk to people on camera. And he was like, you have to lean in and look into the camera. I was like, this is creepy. I'm in the person's face.
I totally get it.
It was a weird world we're living.
And it's funny because I've been in person in office with Robertson since May 2020. So I went from working from home, where my job was very, very, very social,
Yeah.
to go home, and then everything's video. And I was at home on video for a year and a half, and then all of a sudden got thrown back into the real world with humans. And we don't do a lot of video here, so all of our meetings are in person. And so it was really weird getting used to being in person again. People would come to my office door and just start talking. I was like, I'm really uncomfortable with this. I have to answer you right now. This is ridiculous. I need a minute to form my thought.
I need a business day to get back to you.
Yeah, I need to read this 3 times, and then they come and sit on your couch, and they're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, this is so new to me. I forgot other people.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to it, because when we saw a lot of business growth through COVID, because it gave me an opportunity to talk to people that I normally wouldn't.
Yeah.
because they've accepted that this medium for communication is acceptable, right? So I can talk to someone in Vancouver or in St. John's or whatever, and they're okay with it.
Huge.
Prior to COVID, it was like, no, I'm not hopping on a call. I'm not hopping on video. So it's changed a lot for the better.
It definitely has. I mean, it makes things so much easier on a daily basis to connect with people that you have to connect with, whether they're at home or whatever it might be, or a different office or a different location.
Mm.
And it's yeah, it's like anything, right? It's like networking. It's practice. You know, you've got folks who have to practice networking, and like I need to practice videoing.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. I don't have any more questions, Claire. Is there anything else that you want to share with us, the listeners, or myself?
No, this was absolutely a pleasure. It's always nice to share a little bit about the corporate social responsibility side of the world. It's come more to light these days. Everyone's seeing the value of it, but it's also,
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of folks really appreciate all the nuances that go into it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for our listeners. If you guys have any questions or want to pick my brain or Claire's brain, I'm going to be posting this video and her LinkedIn and her socials tagged in it as well. So feel free to reach out. And with that, I'll end it. Thank you so much, Claire.
Awesome. Thank you.